Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Royal Talents Creators Studio Live. My name is Jeff Olson. I'm the Art Education Director for Royal Talents North America, and I will be your host today. We have a wonderful interview and presentation put together for you. I know you guys are going to love it. And always, at the end, we're going to be giving away some paint. This time, we're going to be giving away a set of the Cobra Water-Mixable Oils. And I have some special sets today that I'm going to be giving away, inspired by the new Peasants movie. So, from the creators of Loving Vincent, if you saw Loving Vincent, this wonderful movie entirely hand painted, The Peasants is the same. It's inspired by this Polish novel, Nobel Prize winning novel, and is painted entirely with Cobra water mixable oils. I think it was something like 1,300 liters of paint. Pretty incredible. But I'm going to be giving away some sets inspired by the film to a lucky winner. To be eligible, just make a comment or ask a question during the live broadcast today, and we'll announce the winner at the end of the show. So today's guest is one of our newest ambassadors, although we've been working together unofficially for several years now. She's been involved in the arts all her life and spent several years in the high fashion world of Europe, and then worked in graphic design and creating murals. She began painting professionally with watercolors, but moved to oils in 2009. With a BFA from Washington University in St. Louis and prior study at the Sorbonne and Parsons in Paris, she continued her art education with workshops from prominent artists. She's taught U.S. and international workshops for over 25 years, tons of teaching experience. So I'm looking forward to what she's going to share with us today. Everybody, please join me in welcoming Christine Lashley. Christine, welcome. Yay!
Hey, I'm so glad to be here. And
So
we get
good
to
to
talk
have
about
you.
art. I'm super excited.
I know it. I'm all in. I know it. Somebody was saying you just have the best job. You get to talk to people all the time about materials and painting and art, and it really is. So lucky and happy to be here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the show. My cat's by my side, so if you see like little bunny ears here. Oh, there we go.
There he is.
We're
That's funny.
live. Yes,
My
he's my
dogs are
buddy
with
and
mom
Stacy.
today, so I'm safe. There'll be no
Okay.
outbursts for the delivery man. Oh, we've got
Yeah.
some good turnout so far. I see lots of folks are saying hello, so that's good. Thank you everybody
Oh,
for joining
good.
us. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm so excited to talk on the show. And I thought, well, what can we do that's maybe a little bit different? I do have a program where I kind of meet with students and I love talking about art. I did some things during COVID where we had art chats, and I love what you do. It's great and informative. And I thought something that was recent for me was not only do I have the space now to go bigger, but I want to paint bigger. And I thought I would talk to people about kind of the evolution of my work, how water mixable oils and your products, just how I use that to facilitate going bigger, faster. And also during the presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about problem solving during the way. I just was meeting with a student online and we were talking about how do you just get past how do you put in the last little bit of the work? How do you make a painting not just good, but really good? And, that's always the goal, I think, for everybody, and to just keep growing. So I thought maybe I will present one or two things that could spark some thoughts for our viewers today.
I think that's fantastic. I think this is a great topic. Scaling up is always a challenge, I think, for a lot of folks, especially when they get into the practice of plein air painting and working portable and working small and convenient, but then getting back to the studio and how do I realize this in a larger composition? So this is going to be wonderful.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And I think this is going to be applicable for a lot of folks, whether you're just scaling up smaller images or just going to working on a larger scale in general.
Yeah.
That was challenging for me in my earliest memory of learning to paint and preparing to paint larger. It's a whole new experience. One I really enjoy too. You kind of get a whole body into it. I'm really excited to see what you have to share. I got a couple
Okay.
questions before you jump in,
Okay.
though.
Yep.
I'm always intrigued, and you're not the first person I've talked to in recent months on the show and elsewhere about a background of commercial art and then
Mm.
making the leap into fine art.
Yeah.
So when you think back to that time, do you remember what inspired that transition for you?
Yeah, I had kids and somebody had to stay home with them or we had to pay daycare and we were figuring out the budget. And so I thought, well, I'll give that whole art gig a whirl. And here I am. Kids, and the kids were really good nappers. So I had 2 hours to myself most of the time.
Uh,
Yes, and nap time was seriously enforced in our house. If it wasn't nap time, then it was quiet time where people worked on their projects. And I know that doesn't work for every household, but I feel very lucky that the kids were on board with that idea.
oh, absolutely. I had a similar experience early in career when we had our daughter. Um, we had to juggle and figure it out, and ended up developing kind of this trade-off system. I had my daughter Alexander for half the week, and my wife had at the time had Alex for the other part of the week, and it worked out great. But I would haul her down to the studio with me. I would take her to school where I was teaching at the time, where she became
Yeah.
quite the celebrity. But it is uh, something you have to adapt to and can have big changes, obviously, on how you pursue your career.
Yeah, my kids, I did a portrait and figure class. And so I started training the kids on modeling. At first, it was just reading a book and I would swap them out so they didn't have to model for that long. But yeah, because um, if the kids had a snow day, I would be in trouble. Like, oh no, I was supposed to teach class. Oh, you're the model today in class. Yeah, the other one can draw. Anyway.
No, that's
Yep.
great. I'm always intrigued. I'm always intrigued on how people end up getting to where we are. I think a lot of folks, especially folks who are aspiring to make art making their career or make it a full-time passion, how do you juggle those things and what leads you to realize that is of interest? Yeah.
I agree, Jeff. I think that's so exciting. And I know a lot I've talked to other people about their artistic background, which was in graphic design or printing or some type of that graphic design aspect. And I was okay at it, but it did feel like a job. And so when I started doing the art, that just really resonated with me. And I think that's what I would like to talk about today is that idea of not just going through the mechanics of making a painting, but how do you what we want to do is not feel like it's a chore. We want to feel like the painting is going to be an adventure. I want to see where it goes. And even when the painting is a problem, what ends up happening with the problem? Where do we end up taking it? And so that goes hand in hand with, oh, Kazi's left the building. Yeah, I just in hindsight, looking back, it's good to look back because that's where I
Yeah.
was, and here's where I am now.
You have to move your camera. People think that you just have this wonderful screensaver behind you, but that's part of your studio.
Yes, the studio's been pretty amazing. Yeah,
That's
it's
fantastic. I love
this
those
is
windows.
we got lucky, and the problem there was a wrinkle in the building plans, and they said, "Well, why don't we just make the ceiling higher?" And we're like, "Yes, please." We really like when problems like that happen.
Oh yeah, I'll take that. That's a good problem for sure.
Yeah, because that was
Uh,
a big deal is the easel wouldn't go high enough.
Yeah,
In my old studio, I was like crouching down. It's rather
I have
terrible.
had to modify mine to work in this space. Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
I think a common challenge for many.
yeah. So
I've got
ours,
one more question for you before I turn it over to you, and this is from the bio too. You talk about starting in watercolor, then making the transition to oils. What was the motivation for that? Do you remember?
oh, well, there's that sales thing. And then galleries did, I mean, if I was going to make this financially sustainable to try to be a artist, there was definitely people wanted to learn to paint watercolor, But then purchasing watercolors was a different matter, and galleries didn't really want to show watercolors necessarily. There's exceptions, of course. And instead of, you can say that's not fair, but then there's the practicality of I would still hope to be shown by a gallery and wanted to be doing art sales. And I thought, well, I'll try that. And in truth, I feel there was a National Watercolor Society and American Watercolor Society, and I was having trouble getting into those organizations and being in the juried shows. And I thought, doggone it, I'm meeting this problem and getting frustrated. Why don't I try to go sideways? Let's give oil a try. Let's see what happens there. But because I was pregnant at the time, I didn't want to do solvents in the house. And so that's how I started with the water soluble oils, which they've gone through a different, we could spend the whole time talking about the water mixable oils, but I'm a big fan, done my research on the different types of paints, and Cobra has just been wonderful I just love their fluid nature. And to start a big painting, I work with a house brush. So we'll see that later in the demo section.
I'm excited for that. Well, let's go ahead and do it. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen, and I'm going to see if I can spotlight you. Oh, you're already up there. All right. You go ahead. You go for it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start out with looking at all of these images. I know it looks like, whoa, that's a big presentation, but I thought we'd start in the beginning and we can look at the dates of some of these things and when they happened. So here I am doing watercolor, plein air artist, see it, capture it, beautiful scene, all good. And my kids were working as volunteers on a farm. This was 2015. So I'd been working with oil for a while, but I was working also with watercolor. Plein air was near and dear to my heart. And I was having a great time painting on location and pretty happy with that. I would do a lot of beach studies. This is just watercolor is a great portable way for just, capturing the moment and really letting that sink in. So this is also 2015. And in 2014, I got into my first plein air event, which was Easels in Frederick. And I thought, wow, that's really great. And I was doing Easton later, and people were like, wow, you got into Easton? I think they were too nice to say, yeah, you're probably not ready if that's your second event you've done. So I thought, time to step it up, time to do a good job. And it was certainly a beautiful scene, but the problem was that I was still kind of enmeshed in see it, capture it, and high fidelity to the scene as it exists instead of what was my memory. So this was something that was not on my radar at the time. So fast forward, this is the painting, which it didn't sell. And I thought, but there's something there. And so for me, this is kind of a catalyst painting. I had been continuing to take some workshops and try to educate myself on how to be a better painter. What are master works? How are people like getting works in the bigger shows, and what could I do? And I thought, this isn't exactly what I saw. Like, it's just the knee-jerk reaction to being in the field. So I guess we could also call this talk a little bit beyond plein air. So here's an image that I did by painting over this multiple times. And was this done plein air? Kind of, but it was done in the studio, not necessarily from photo reference, but also memory and a lot of layers. And this painting did sell. So I thought I was kind of onto something, and looking back at what's happened over the past decade of my artwork and seeing how things have progressed, working faster, working bigger, and working more true to the actual memory of a scene. So here I was very fortunate that Principal Gallery in Charleston was very interested in showing my work. And no pressure, but come to town and leave us with like, yeah, come stay at our apartment and show us like 5 to 10 plein air paintings. And I thought, oh boy, hope I'm up to that task. And they showed me this rooftop bar of the view of Charleston. It was a cold day. I did a quick, super tiny watercolor study. And so look how pathetic the moon looks here. And the church isn't glowing, but there was a discord between the feeling of what was there and the photo. I don't know how many times viewers can experience this, but you're there, it's beautiful, and the photo just falls down on the job of experiencing the visual impact. It just, I don't know. I could go on and on about that. So it's a hybrid of a memory study, and I did look at the photo a little bit, and I thought this has a lot of potential for making it into a bigger painting. So I think this is maybe 40-40, possibly 36-36. And you can see I brought everything lighter, and I even didn't finish some of the edges. Now, this was started with water-mixable oil, and then often what I'll do to build impasto, you can even see just a few of the drips here of
Oh,
the
yeah.
different layered techniques, and then I'll do some knife work on top. So I had a lot of fun working on that. Watercolor is still kind of my go-to for grabbing these ideas. So this image is I was doing a workshop in Paris, and I quite liked how this sketch turned out, or painting, depending
Yeah,
on
it's
how you
wonderful. Yeah.
like to think of it. A few touch for those watercolorists out there, a little touch of body color here and also here, but otherwise it's pretty much transparent watercolor.
My
So here's
favorite
the
place in
literal,
Luxembourg Gardens there.
yeah, they were doing construction on it last year,
Oh,
so it was really depressing. This was in 19. So we went, it was on the agenda to paint that, and I guess they're preparing for the Olympics this year,
mm.
getting it all spruced up and spiffy. But this was oh, excuse me, forgot to turn my phone off. This was basically this would have been a very difficult photo to make my painting from. But with this light-filled sketch, I was able to create this painting. I wanted
Okay.
to create that feeling of being bathed in light. And this is how you can go beyond the photo. And is it plein air? Not really, but being there certainly helped. So this is just something this kind of push forward to have memory involved in the study and lock in a feeling. You can see I've changed some things too. Like I thought the pink flowers that we see literally would be intrusive. I deleted the figures because overall it was very peaceful. Anyway,
What was Christine, what was the scale of that? Do you remember?
yeah, sure. It's 36-36.
It's a good size.
Yeah. And so because of the size ratio fact that I've been exploring this, I've actually gone even smaller. So sometimes I'll take literal notes, and I might not have this out when I do a big painting. You're going to see a big cloud focused painting. So I'm going to talk about beach and watercolor and like the synthesis of all of this plein air, how it came to fruition in just this burst of creativity. I get a lot of questions about how do you do so many paintings and they're all so big? And I think it's going between the super small and then the jumbo size. And also we'll take a look at the tools that I'm using for that. This is a vintage watercolor set of paint. You can make your own, and they sell replicas of this, but just having this is started out pan watercolors, and then I just fill it, and you can see a water pen there, and it's super tiny, and I like to travel with this just tucked in my bag.
And did you make that little swatch chart from it?
Yeah, I've had that since I was like, 15 or something. It was my first big, speaking of supplies, that was my first big supply kit that I had. that I felt so important having my watercolor kit.
That's
It's fun
cool,
that I still use it.
for sure.
So this is something that I've started doing when I'm on location. I will take one scene and I will interpret it 4 different ways. And this happened to be a beach scene, and it's just a great way. You're not invested in a painting per se. So this gently suggests things to me. I'm not an artist who makes studies necessarily, but I like the power of suggestion that paint offers. And you'll see that as a thread throughout my paintings, even the really big ones. When paint goes down and something is happening, I'm like, ooh, it gets me excited to make a bigger painting. And therefore, are these compositional studies? Not really. It's more bending my brain around the idea that, look, it's the same scene, but you don't have to be so literal. And I find that very, very helpful. Here's just more nitty gritty with the clouds. I really go crazy on clouds and trying to capture that. And then this watercolor study, I could hold the knife up. And there's something about watercolor that has just this very easygoing nature of the puddles, and it's that power of suggestion that is really great. So sometimes I adopt that with oils because I don't find oils to be as intuitive as watercolor. So here was a reference scene from all of that previous stuff, the 4 beach studies and that one watercolor study where I was holding up the knife, and I created this painting. And this is a 3648. And you can see if we go back and look at this, there's no composition. And even in the photo, what's happening? It's mostly just bands and strips of color, but it was the power of the light that really was
Yeah.
my way forward to understand that.
There's a question that came up. They were asking, do you stretch your own canvases or do you
No, I
purchase
don't.
those? Yeah.
I find that process I like for all of my materials to be open it and use it. Nothing wrong with stretching your own or preparing your own panels or doing your own frames. A lot of artists do that. I want to be able to I have a storage room of many sizes, and I um take it out and say, woohoo, let's go. This feels like a 3648. So I keep an inventory of stuff. It was hard during COVID. There was less stuff. I was like, well, I guess I got to paint a different size. Oh my gosh.
We
Supply
all had to make
chain.
adjustments anyway.
Don't be talking about supply chain. Um, so in this next series of reference photos, I would like viewers to understand these were experiences, and often I did the studies in conjunction with that. This also was on the farm. The beautiful clouds. So how could I take these clouds, which are, here it's kind of almost competing with the landscape. It's very beautiful, different places. This is Jackson Hole. The previous one was in Virginia. And here, I think this is the Bahamas, but this searing sunlight and this bathed in light feeling. This is Oregon. What am I going to do with this? Like, it's like spaghetti up there in my head. It's like, I think the noodles are swirling around and they're going to do something here. What type of painting will this be? And then I thought, don't make it complicated. And also I had a commission that a client was interested in having me do, and they kind of clarified the thought and I ran with it. This feeling of cresting the hill, vegetation on each side. And I thought, how cool is it? Just nature is so amazing that every day the beach will present something unique, but yet it might look all the same. So we could have similar clouds, we could have this. So I did a series of 3 paintings that were very large based on
Love
all
the
of the
light.
beach studies and the experience that I had of cresting that hill and that anticipation of, what am I going to see today? Am I going to find a shell? Is that going to be fun? So I did a whole lot of paintings of that, different sizes. I like to work with different sizes. So I just kind of will swap the paintings back and forth. You could see this one is not quite finished. It ended up getting finished, but I just thought it would be good for viewers to see like work in progress.
Do you use more than one white?
No, I don't.
Titanium then mainly?
Titanium, safflower, so it doesn't, so it maintains its clarity as it dries.
Right, right.
So then I thought, what if I simplified things even further and basically had water and sky and maybe a thin strip of land. So this actually started out in the Bahamas. It's that same feeling of sunlight though that is present in these paintings, that kind of looking into the sun, the path of sunlight, and then tossing in a bit of marsh and the studies that were done on location. So here I am starting with the literal interpretation of that Bahamas scene. And this is the water mixable underpainting. So here's a better shot of that. So it's really simple. And you can see this is very large. This is 60 inches tall by 48 wide. Now, early on, the cloud was actually taking over a bit, but I absolutely loved what the water mixable was doing here. It harkens back to those days of watercolor where I could see kind of this underpainting gets the job done. It's selectively toning the canvas. It's giving me compositional shapes. It's showing me a kind of ghost image of what the future image is going to be. And it's providing a true depiction of the impact of the different colors. Especially when you go bigger, you have to be careful that your colors don't get too garish, and value is super important. So here things, what happens for me is things start to go a little bit darker. And I thought, oh boy, this doesn't have a very good feeling of light to it. But so then when I get the opaque paint back, and that ended up being a quite vibrant image, because I'm going all the way back to it's like it goes through this cycle of the opacity of paint, and to honor that with building back up to that spark of light. So it has to go dark before it gets light again.
I love the reflections you get on streams and rivers. I think
Oh,
the
thanks.
first time I saw your paintings, they just, that was the most magical part of them for me, was this beautiful, beautiful reflections.
Oh, thanks so much, Jeff. Maybe I'll do something like that for, we're talking about doing a demo in the Smoky Mountains that
That would be
is
awesome.
coming up.
Awesome.
So
Some great rivers there. Perfect.
yeah, exactly. Well, this is the last kind of big demo. So everything is huge. You can see on the easel. So this last one we will take a look at. So here's the concept. This was in 2017 on Pont Neuf. I loved how the gold light, you could see the motif happening, right? The light is kind of pinging over the buildings, and you could see that path of light happening there. So the watercolor it was an okay watercolor. Here's the thing is, is plein air, it's great, but my job is to make a good painting, not necessarily copy high fidelity. I can't be everywhere all at once. Maybe this was the best day of my days in Paris, so I could still, oh, Kazi, what are you doing? Oh my goodness. He's messing stuff up. I think he wants my attention. You
Yeah,
have to
for
wait.
sure.
You
For
have to
sure.
wait. People on Zoom have my attention now. All right. So basically, my job is to synthesize all of this into something that is going to work. So I have another ho-hum plein air study. And I had this photo that I thought, wow, just something about that. I liked the graphic nature of buildings. Do I add the car, that red bike? All of that's really interesting. I thought, no, I have to pick one thing, and it's just all of those graphic shapes were fantastic. So I pretty much, I jumped right in. I did that thing. I grabbed a canvas and I said, yep, looks like you're going to be a 30 by 60. Let's do it. So here, Jeff, I have my water mixable oils. You can see a spray bottle in my hand. I usually work with transparent oxide red and French ultramarine blue. I like those two together, and you can see
Yeah.
some dips that are happening. And in this next segment, I have done some gridding out, but this is still all water mixable. And I try to stick to those two colors because I know that things are going to be overlaid, just like we saw in the water image. Things are going to be overlaid so that I could bring back that spark. And that was the plan as to how things were going. Here, I've added water mixable white to the sky, and I'm starting to edge towards some gold. And there's my paint buddy on my shoulder, my kitty cat. And so it's a mix between organic and flowing and structured, especially for a scene that has all of these, all those Houseman windows were just driving me crazy. Well, then I got into a muddle because it went too dark and it was not going well. So I've thought this is just so cool that we have all of these things at our fingertips today to explore different ideas. So if hopefully the previous painting it was very linear, and there were a few ins and outs, but it happened. And I was like, wow, look at me, did a big painting in like a week. Well, this one took a long time and it just sat there looking at me. So if something isn't going according to plan, I get out my iPad and use Procreate. So this is the sketch that I came up with, and we're going to look back in time, the original bum image. Now I'm trying different things out. Highlights on the trees. Do the trees get greener? Should I straighten the walkway along the sun? Do I add more jazzy bits of highlight on the tip tops of the buildings? Maybe what I need to do is make it a nocturne. I'm not totally sure. So just all of these explorations, and you can do this in different layers. So it creates just kind of this shorthand version of where do I want to take this? And I decided on this image, and here's the final piece. And that Procreate interlude was just a really important new tool that I've added to my repertoire when working big. And I think that's about it. I have a few more images of the studio if we have more time.
Yeah, we definitely do. Let's take a
Oh,
look. There was a
okay.
couple quick questions. In that when you were beginning that painting, do you use just a brush or using any type of shapers? What kind of tools do you use at those early stages?
Yeah, in the early stage, basically, let's see if I could do a freeze frame. You can see that it's a house brush, and I use the paper towel, and there's the house brush on the lower edge there. And I will, here's the house brush here.
Hmm.
I'm working on a wide glass palette to the right, and I like one that is gray and one that's clear. So I make these big soupy puddles of colors. And the spray bottle helps to unify stuff. So sometimes I take it away and then sometimes I bring it back. So it's very push-pull, just like watercolor was.
Nice,
Any other
perfect.
questions?
Well, go ahead. Let's go ahead and take a look at the
Okay.
pictures, and we'll swing back around.
Sure. So here's, I mentioned I have many works in progress. Another tip for working large is to see it in different types of light and also in different situations. So here I'm just kind of letting that picture rest up on the side. You can see there's other paintings scattered throughout, and to work on this beach series in conjunction with the Sun Sparkles large piece was just really beneficial because it's not necessarily matching up the color. It's tapping back into that feeling when I want this to be like a window into that experience. You can even see here like some of those funny tall clouds that we were looking at.
Hmm.
Or I like the series of 3 column clouds. I thought those were kind of fun. And then as the paint dries, the merging of the different paint. So here's a different lighting condition. I like to, have the painting just kind of off to the side, so I catch it out of the corner of my eye. These were ones I was working on at the time. So just the different sizes for comparison. This is a 30 by 40. So this is the 60 by 48. And I will just pop back and forth between the images. And but this big Paris painting too took a long time to create. So I like to have, this is kind of my inspiration board. I like to have studies up. If you look, you could see this is a watercolor painting I ripped in half, and then I was like, oh wait, I like that half. So this is rescued. This is the whole painting didn't work, but I like this as a study. And Sargent's just up there all the time because he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And this is Emil Carlson. I really like his simplicity. But if you look at the, designers have like fabric swatches.
Yeah.
To me, like these swatches visually go with the study, and that might go with these things that I'm working on. And these are some paintings that I did at the time. I didn't think, they weren't great paintings, but it was greens going into the distance, and they were painted on location. So I keep this up on my study wall. I just find them extremely useful
Yeah.
you'd think I'd know this by now, but it doesn't hurt to hold up a knife like I showed viewers previously. And
Can
here's
you go
the,
back to that picture for a second,
yeah,
Christine?
sure.
Yeah, I love the one on the far right there. It reminds me of Joan Mitchell, who's an abstract expressionist painter. It looks like one of her compositions. I love the abstract quality.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
that's really beautiful.
Why can't, I mean, this was the first moment I thought to myself, sure, why can't it all be about the water?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love
And
that.
the energy of the brush strokes. So I had that
Mhm.
up when I was doing that other painting. So here's the paintings in the show that I just mounted. This is in Charleston. I just got back a few days ago. You could see um, the ceilings are so tall, and there's a need for larger artwork. Sometimes when I'm in my own space, and especially when I was working in my super small studio that I started out in before I had this space, it was really hard to get motivated to do bigger paintings. And here's the cloud piece we looked at. And this one is 40 by 60, this Paris
Wow.
painting. So getting outside and looking at other exhibit spaces. Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay. This was just left over. But yeah, so getting outside your own head and not being so literal and just splicing things together. And you're right, Jeff. I was going to throw out that watercolor study, and then I was like, ripped in half. It's actually quite powerful. So
It's really nice. Yeah. I love that idea. I mean, I've heard people call them mood boards or idea boards,
yeah,
and you do see them a lot in commercial art, fashion, interior designers do a lot of great mood boards. But I was thinking about it the other day. I thought, well, maybe I should do that. But I actually have a bulletin board in my studio that has all sorts of things tacked to it.
there
And
you go.
that's my mood board, right? It's little
There you
gems
go.
you find or things you've sketched or done or images that you like. And it just kind of sets a tone and it grows over time in fascinating ways.
Yeah, make it personal. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So we got lots of fun feedback. Mainly people are just in love. They're just saying, I love these. And I agree with them 100%. So you're getting
Oh,
tons of kudos.
well,
And I think
I
people really enjoy the
appreciate,
process.
art has to connect to a viewer. So I'm always appreciative when somebody tells a story or says that made an impact. So I'm very, very grateful.
This was a
It's,
great topic. People are resonating, especially their comments about seeing the studies and then the finished work, and seeing how the studies are not literal depictions of what's seen as much as you're just capturing a mood or a sense of the place or your response to it, I guess, is really the best way to talk about it, isn't it?
Yeah. And things can happen pretty quickly. Like when you're just like, yep, I guess I'm painting that. I used to feel um very guilty that I didn't do a lot of studies and there's, no tan and maybe I should do that. And um I think there's different ways to approach everything. If I am adopting a lot more intuitive, I mean, I've certainly done the structure to try to come up with things. And what type of artist would I be if I did black and white studies for things? That's right. What would I be? It's just, he keeps me, he's like, don't take it too seriously. Yep.
Oh, I have one, we have a couple of dogs, but only one. Her name's Coda. She's my studio dog. She follows me down there every time I go down and sits and watches over the whole process, diligently, waiting for me to get back up and maybe throw the ball. But
Yeah, yeah. My cat has a very good critical eye by now. He knows when things are. And there's so for example, the painting that is behind me on the easel, it was going to be of my yard. I'm like, I'm going back to plein air and I could do a big plein air because all I have to do is look outside. And I think what we're talking, at least what I tried to talk about in the presentation, and the role of a study is to cut the clutter. It's to synthesize the nucleus of the idea. So there I was. I mean, the view is great of the trees, but I kept painting and painting and painting the trees. And then I was like, no, it's the forest as a collective. It's not like I had too much fidelity to the trees. I actually had to put it away for a while. And I would look at it again and I'm like, I just got seduced by my own backyard. Like just too much. Anyway, it's cutting through the clutter and figuring out what to leave out. And that's why going really small can kind of help you to figure
yeah.
out what that might be.
Or giving yourself time limits, I've found helpful too. Like I'm going to do this in 10 minutes. I'm going to make this. I'm going to get an impression of it. There's going to be no sitting here overworking.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Do you do studies?
I don't do a lot of studies. I mean, there will be some times where I encounter something and I either snap a picture of it, or if I don't have that, I will do a quick drawing if there's something that's really powerful that I want to make sure that I remember and bring back to the studio. But most of my process is about reacting to what I'm doing as I'm working on the painting. So I try to start with as few preconceived ideas as possible, just with a kind of a singular inspiration. Sometimes it's color, sometimes it's color relationships, sometimes it's something that I've seen, but most of what it happens is about discovering it through the process of the painting.
There you go. I found it was something about watercolor and the discovery process and being surprised by the paint. And then with that large Paris painting, like I got bummed out that things got a little bit gray. So getting back to the giant what if, and you can do anything you want on Procreate because it's super cheap. There's no paint has been wasted on this concept.
And you can do it anywhere. I travel a lot for work,
Uh,
and the Procreate is super nice. I'd be sitting on the plane or sitting somewhere waiting for something, and I can whip out the picture of the painting that I've been working on and start messing with it.
yeah,
It's a fun process. It's different. There's no tactile, you're not touching it in the same way you interact with paint or those materials, but you can work out some ideas and gain some inspiration. I think that's important.
I think this is all just the best stuff, right? Inspiration, trying different things, not trying. What we're not doing is adopting a formula that we know that just because somebody else finds studies and black and white and no tan extremely helpful, that's so great. But and even though I've tried that, I mean, honestly, I could probably be better about that. But I just have found over time that there's some things it's just really hard work. And then other things are like, we're gonna get a big canvas out today and we're gonna play and it's gonna be awesome. And
There's
that's,
something to be said for that, you know, and I like that idea of free play and
yeah,
exploration too. I
instead of
think
like, oh,
I
have to
think the
do your
one thing,
homework first,
yeah, yeah, do your homework, do your studies, take those to
I
the
know.
studio, but
You
just
can't
don't
have
lock
any
yourself.
fun with paint. You have to do your no tans.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
I got a few more questions for you
Okay.
from the group here. So you were
Shoot.
starting out the painting. Do you use just water or are you using any mediums as well?
I'm using just water because I figure that layer won't last. That's the suggestive layer. So it's also, you could look at that as selective toning because that way, and sometimes I've experimented with doing opposite colors for the toning. For example, if the sky is going to be blue, I might tone it orange. I don't do that as much anymore just because it would be the opposite.
Hmm.
Now I like to do the same color, but just water. Yeah. And then if I don't like it, I wash it down.
That's nice. Nice. It
Yep.
does lift really easily. I love that
It
about
really does.
it.
I'm working on predominantly Centurion linen canvas that is pre-stretched, and I think Jerry's Autorama sells that. So I found that that's very conducive to it's usually all media primed. A lot of people are saying you can't use oil primed. I don't find that to be the case. It's just you have to encourage the paint to it just use a little more elbow grease than the beginning stages. So either way works. It's totally fine.
Yeah, the recommendation from the manufacturer, from Royal Talents with Cobra, is to use an acrylic or universal prime. And that's
Mhm.
because there are some folks who have experienced problems with the oil prime surface, primarily in drying and adhesion, but it's very specific and very unique. So just to be on the safe side, our recommendation is the acrylic primed. But
Yeah.
there are folks who do work successfully with an oil primed surface. It just is about how you paint and what your process and how you're layering is really important.
Yeah, I think most of my work is not done as glazing. Most of my work is fat over lean, and then basically the watery mix is the super lean layer, which then gets consumed with the subsequent layers.
Yeah, yeah,
I do let that thoroughly dry. Usually I'll do a block in slash toning concept. And I try to save a good chunk of time to working on that. And then I'll let that dry like a day or two and then go in with the full paint.
yeah. The recommendation, if you're using a lot of water in those early stages, and of course, is a recommendation again, is 72 hours. It takes 72 hours for the water to completely evaporate. Water evaporates more slowly than solvents or, you know, like turpentine or white spirits. They evaporate very rapidly, which is one of the reasons they're very volatile, is because they evaporate so quickly. But the water takes a little bit longer. 3 days will give you maximum assurance, but dry to the touches, I think, is what most people are doing.
Mhm. And also there's no touch of water that would be added to the person who was asking about mediums. And I have tried the different mediums, but most of the paint is just direct. And I will put in traditional paint as well. I don't necessarily always do all water mixable, but I might. It just depends.
Yeah, it's such a buttery, creamy paint. It doesn't need a lot of mediums. Mediums can be
Yeah,
fun and they can certainly enhance the experience and help you create different results and different experiences of working with it. But right out of the tube, it's just a great paint.
I agree. Yep. I'm sorry, I have like a cat hair in my eye now.
That's okay. I'm looking through here. Oh, yeah.
Luckily, I'm not doing a demo, so it's all fine.
Somebody is reminding me, and it's true, we have new mediums for Cobra, and one of them is the thinner. So there is a solvent-free thinner now available for Cobra. So if you've tried water, like Christine is working, and not satisfied with the feel of that, we now have a product that is a thinner that really replicates that experience of painting with a white spirit and oil in the early stages. And it also dries a little faster than mixing with water too. So that is available online now. So just put Cobra thinner in your search and you should be able to find it. And what else we got here? There's so many coming in. Now I'm trying to keep up here. With traditional paint, with traditional paint, do you use a medium when you're using your traditional oils?
Usually I don't. Mostly it's just direct painting. I I mean, the paint is formulated to be good right out of the tube. I think um mediums are a little bit funny business. I had trouble early on when I was trying to find my way when I used, I think, either too much zinc white or too much alkyd quick dry, and possibly a quick dry medium. And I noticed cracking on the paint. Luckily, it was just a study. I was thinking of like scraping down and repainting. But I have had conservators at the Smithsonian that said the healthiest paint film is the one where it is painted basically all in one wet. That is your meaning alla prima
Yeah.
or in a very linear fashion where each paint layer is kind of clinging to the previous paint layer and the paint is intermixed. And a healthy paint film has to be maintained. The paint film can't be too thin because oil paint inherently will thin over time. That's just its natural property. And it was very interesting having a conversation with them about that. And therefore, like in the example of that's why Procreate can be extra powerful. I don't waste time making just another linear move, or, oh, the sky was dark, now the sky is light. Now I added the lights, I took them away. So also it makes for a healthier paint film if you paint with intent and know I would clarify the main idea and go at the painting. Instead of finding my way with the painting, I am approaching the easel with a clear idea in mind of what my target focus is. Therefore, that's all of that words are saying I don't use medium because I'm not over painting it as much. It's mostly direct painting.
I agree. The alla prima, it is all about oil content, right? Old master techniques, that is a science. That type of glazing and layering
Yeah.
requires close attention to fat over lean principles and to understand how the mediums you're adding are impacting the oil content and the drying rate. Like if you're adding things that include cicative or a
Well,
whole list of resins. Yeah.
yeah, brands of paint, but also like here's a mind bender. It took me, I was like, wait, what? I thought it was wrong. But so for example, burnt umber is considered a lean paint all by itself. So it's manufactured with less oil than, let's say, a cad red. That's
Mhm.
why a cad red, regardless of the manufacturer, in order to make that pigment and have it be emulsified, it is going to contain more oil in it. So therefore, it's pretty much, you could be assured that it's always going to be a fatter paint. Well, this is for oil paint. I mean, watercolor, it's probably got different binder, but it's just because of the paint pigment itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought, wow, that's so interesting. So not only do you have to know about mediums, but anyway, so once again, back to
Yeah.
all in one wet is pretty safe. If it's not
That is
working,
a rabbit hole to go down to. I always
yeah, I
hesitate to bring
know.
that
I was
up
like,
because
oh, better put the brakes on that. We'll be here forever.
every paint has a different oil content because every pigment has a special characterization. It's about absorption. How much oil can a pigment absorb and still maintain stability within the paint tube? And absolutely right. Some paints are very lean, meaning they're more pigment and less oil. Other paints are very fat, meaning they have less pigment and more oil. So it does become a real science and requires some attention if you're really getting into making 15 transparent glazes on your painting.
Yeah, exactly.
Quick, here's some easy ones. Do you varnish your paintings?
Yes, but sometimes they go to the gallery wet. And so I just make a note so the gallery knows. And often this just happened. A client bought a painting and then just brought it back to the gallery and they just gave it a varnish. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah. And somebody's asked a question about varnishes with Cobra. Cobra does make some varnishes, some spray varnishes, but you can use any traditional oil varnish over a dry Cobra painting. Same rules apply in terms of wait time and which is 6 to 9 months traditionally for an oil painting. So same process, same products can be used, and all varnishes, even Cobra, contain solvents. So that's something to be aware of too. If you're using Cobra because you have a serious health condition or serious health reason for not using solvents in the studio, just be aware that all varnishes have some type of solvent in them. That's because they need to be able to be removed at a later date, and that's what facilitates that. Um, this looks like a question for me about other brands of mediums with Cobra. You certainly can use that. And you can use Cobra mediums with traditional oils. You just won't be able to mix with water. There's only one Cobra medium that's out now. It's a new one called Medium Mix that you can add to a traditional oil to make it water mixable. And that's brand new. All right, I think this is good. This is great. We're
Well,
wrapping
awesome.
it up. Great questions,
Okay.
great participation. Fantastic sharing those images, Christine. That was really, really interesting to see your process like that.
Oh, you bet. My pleasure.
So a couple quick announcements, right? You're going to be at PACE, which is the Plein Air Convention and Expo just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. I'm going to be at PACE as well. I'm excited. And you mentioned that you're
Oh,
going to be doing a demo in the booth, which is fantastic.
yes.
Any
Yeah.
other workshops or announcements that you have?
Well, I do have an online class that goes into materials and how I do things. I also will post process. So sometimes I can't fit, a big 60 by 40 painting in that. So I take videos and do process and narrate that for my students. And that's at Lashley art class. Otherwise, I'm only doing one, maybe two workshops a year. So I've switched to doing a lot of online teaching. And yeah, the exhibit in Charleston is still up if you're in the area. And that's at Principal Gallery in Charleston. And that's about it.
I just put your website address into the comments section. So folks, if you want to, you can click on that or save that and get more information too about workshops and the show. Is the show mentioned on the website as well?
Yes, there's a link to the show.
Perfect.
Sure thing.
Perfect. Well, I've only got one more responsibility here, and that is to
Okay.
give away some paint.
Ooh.
And we have lucky winner, and it is Barbara Cooper. Barbara, you are the winner. Congratulations. Going to get some sets of Cobra. Just send me a direct message on our Facebook page. That's Royal Talents North America, Royal Talents NA, hashtag Royal Talents NA. Send me a direct message there, and I'll get in touch with you, and we'll get you out your set of paint inspired by the Peasants movie. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Christine. This has been great. And we will see everybody next time on the Creator Studio Live, or we'll see you in North Carolina. One or the other.
Jeff,
All
thanks
right.
so much.
You bet. Take care, Christine.
Okay.